Welcome to Páirc nGael here on Treasure Island for again a great community day with the skyline of San Francisco to our right and Gaelic Games being played right in front of us out here. I think there's any better example in the world of how Ireland, the Irish and global GAA travel. This is the community, this is our parish. We're here in a room of people. This wasn't just built, this place was willed by a group of volunteers, many of whom are in this room, many who are in different parts of the US, many some back in Ireland that made this happen. And it's a credit to you all for making it this way, and the creativity, the resilience, the vision that enabled it is second to none. So it's fitting that we have the Uachtaráin here with us today, a man who knows just what it takes to be a volunteer, what's needed, from the secretary of Silverbridge GAA club, the second best club in Armagh, to the Uachtaráin position that he holds today, principal of St Paul's, a man who is steeped in the tradition of GAA but has a bold vision for GAA in the future, and indeed the role of GAA in Ireland overseas. I'm delighted to have you here, Jarlath. Community's delighted to have you here. It's your first time in San Francisco, is that right?
Yeah, it's hard to believe our youngest daughter got here before me. Ellen is here. She's playing today for nGael. It didn't get a great result, but very proud. First thing that she did was hook up with the club, and the funny thing was that you know she was at the airport and she actually got an Instagram from one of the girls in the club to say, an Instagram that said, "Do you have a place to stay? Have you a job? I hear you're coming," which is so heartening for any person coming from Ireland to America, and it gives such great peace of mind to parents whenever you know that your child is coming and that they're going, once they get involved in the GAA club. It gives great peace of mind because there'll be people there who will look after them, keep a wee eye on them, and life is all about choices. That's what they say. This life that we are in, and when you come into to this place and you see the two islands, you see Treasure Island and you see Alcatraz Island, and depending on the choices that you make, you could end up in either of them. And I've gone through my whole life having this obsession with this place called Alcatraz and always wanting to come to San Francisco to see it. But back in 2008, I remember I would have been very close friends with Jean Duffy, who was a very close neighbour of ours. She only lived about 50 yards from my home, and Jean used to tell me constantly, "You should see what they're doing in San Francisco. You should see what they're doing in San Francisco." And today I have seen what they've done in San Francisco and what they're doing in San Francisco. And nothing could have prepared me for what I have seen, for the beauty of it and for the pride that you have in what you have achieved, and the series of photographs taking it from a pile of rubble to what you have here today. And this is about vision into action. And you mentioned it last night when we were in the car about this is a town where people think big and they can achieve big. And that field out there and the setup is a perfect example of that. So I'm just here mainly to tell you that we're so proud in Ireland of what you've achieved. And every place I go to in the world, when I see what the Irish have achieved through the GAA, it's amazing. But none as much as here. This place is ours. It's a piece of Ireland. And I know that you're very proud of it. And as president of GAA, I'm proud of you for having done it. So, Gur Céad Míle Maith Chailéir.
We'll give this another go. I should have said at the outset, I promise that to our man up here, we will not mention the 5-point win over Dublin earlier. I promise, very comfortable win today. But Jarlath, Uachtaráin, your journey through the GAA, 1990, raising the Anglo-Celt Cup, setting Armagh on that path towards a 2002 All-Ireland victory, your work in the school with St Paul's, now to the highest position in the largest amateur organisation in the world. Those scenes when you returned from the vote up to Silverbridge, and the elation that the community had and the pride that they had in you and the pride that we have in you as Armagh people, as Ulster people. Tell us a bit about that experience, that journey that brought you to Uachtaráin.
You always have to remember in the GAA, and being an Irish person, the most important thing you can do, I remember my dad used to always say to me, it doesn't matter how big you get, always stay ordinary. Be an ordinary person. Don't be anybody special, because in Ireland we don't have an upper class or a landed gentry or an aristocracy or a royal family. We don't have any of that. We're essentially the survivors of the famine. And as a result of that, there is this wonderful equality that exists in Ireland. And that is why there's this modesty. And people who sometimes get a wee bit beyond themselves stick out very, very quickly. And that is why the journey that I have made through my club and through playing for Armagh, I'm being very, very proud of my club, and I'm still assistant secretary of my club. When I became president, they actually demoted me from secretary to assistant secretary. And that was mainly to allow other people to come in and do the horsework. But the funny thing was, a few things happened. When I come back to the club that night, and we have a resource centre, there was about 600 or 700 people in it, and the chairman was a fellow called Pat Casey. I've spent my whole life trying to seek his approval throughout my whole life. And like, Irish people are very slow at saying to you, we're very proud of you, of what you've done and what you've achieved. And even through my Armagh career and everything else, Pat would never say, geez, it's great to see a Silverbridge man wearing an Armagh jersey. Never, ever, ever. And then finally, here I am, and I got onto the stage, and the whole committee are sitting on the stage, place packed. All the Ulster GAA people here, Armagh, top brass here, and the rest of the place, sea of blue and yellow. And Jarlath, President of the GAA 2024-2027 on the back wall. And I sat down beside Pat. All the committee were on the stage. And Pat leant over to me, and I thought Pat was going to say, finally, we are proud of you, for what you've achieved for our club. But Pat didn't say that. Pat says, we want money. And the funny thing about that was, our club had 87,000 lodged in Croke Park. And as secretary then, last February, I think it was, I, as assistant secretary and president of the GAA, applied for a loan out of Croke Park, because we were extending our resource centre and building a fitness suite and stuff, and got turned down by Croke Park for a loan. That hasn't gone down. I get reminded very, very regularly of that.
Thanks, Jarlath. I think we spoke last night. The iconic image of you handing over the cup, embracing your son Charlie Ogue at the All Ireland final. But like those are the images that we see. But it's a hard job that you're in. It's a tough job. We've already seen the transformation with new rules in football, and things are changing. But just get a sense of your vision for the role, your aspirations, your ambitions.
Yeah, I set out to do three things. There was three things that I made very clear what I wanted to do. First one was to try and sort out the rules of Gaelic football. Gaelic football had the potential to be this wonderful game, but I didn't feel that it was because of the way it was being coached. And that was year one. Year two, which we're in the middle of now, is the amateur status. Like, we're spending 44 million in Ireland preparing county teams. As we move towards integration, that's not sustainable, because if we're going to have an equitable organisation fully integrated, we can't have us spending 44 million in one team and not even giving travelling expenses to Camogie and LGFA teams. So that's year two, and we're well on the way towards what I want to achieve with regard to the amateur status and what it means to be an amateur player playing county football and hurling in 2025. The third one is to do with hurling. That's more of a legacy thing. It takes 15, 20 years to achieve that, and it's to try and get more clubs playing hurling. So we have the starter packs. We have appointed a head of hurling, William Maher, a very visionary guy. And they're the three main things that I want. But I think it was Harold Macmillan said, it's events, my dear, by events. Things happen throughout your turn that you have to respond to and you have to be alert to. And some of them things that you have to do can be unpopular, because the job of the Director General is to keep the GAA going day to day. That's his job or her job. The job of the President is to defend these values. The GAA is an organisation of values. We never take that for granted. We don't have shareholders, we have stakeholders, and you are part of our stakeholders. And we have very, very high standards to set ourselves. You know, our values, our community, our amateur status, our respect, player welfare, inclusion, and teamwork and volunteerism. And any time you see that any of those values are under threat, it's the job of the GAA as the President, number one, to put himself in the lane of that fire. And that can create difficulties, but I have to be big enough to take that on my shoulders. And that's just part of being the job, and I think we do the best we can in it. And there's always going to be little bits of conflict, but that's part of it, and you have to be resilient to take it.
exactly that. And I think you can see the excitement with the football championship this year, the transformation that's happened, and the games that are open and right to the wire. We're going to seek some questions from the audience in about 5-10 minutes. So I think Christy is pointing us, Christy, down this side for anyone who wants to ask. Just we can grab the microphone here. So have a think on a couple of questions. But Jarlath, we're in the capital, the centre of GAA on the western US, and we all know we've lived in different parts of the world. I've been in Asia myself and Middle East, and you know the Gaelic club, it's an anchor for the Irish community. It's an anchor for those with an Irish identity. It's a pull, it's a community, it's a parish for us. I think Paul Keane here is 170 clubs, 80 cities, Paul, 6,000 players, about 80% of them born in the US. And the CYC, which is Chicago, this year, a couple of years ago, was in Dublin, California. Tremendous weekend. There's about 3,000-4,000 kids playing. What's your view and ambition and focus on the global GAA game?
Well, it is significant that I am today being interviewed by the Irish Consulate in San Francisco, and I think it would be important for me to mention the incredible respect that we get and the relationship we have with the Department of Foreign Affairs. So last month when I was in Abu Dhabi, Alison Milton was the person who invited us to her home, and she got us in contact with a lot of people in the Middle East, which really assisted our operation there. Everywhere we go, the ambassador is all of the... Last week, in fact, I was in London launching the All Britain Championships, where in Martin Fraser's embassy in London. The Irish embassy all around the world know that they're very, very lucky that if you want to find the Irish community, come here any Sunday. Come to where the GAA are and you'll find the Irish community. And that's a major, major assistance because no other country has that. So let's say if I was playing rugby or soccer and I went to the United Arab Emirates, I joined the Federation of Soccer in the United Arab Emirates. There's no Irish FAI in United Arab Emirates or in America. You join the local soccer team. The GAA runs the entirety of the GAA throughout the world. That is a major advantage that we have, but it's also a disadvantage because I think that at times we don't have the same understanding of what it takes to run global GAA as those in World GAA know themselves. So one of the things that I want to do towards the end of the summer is to do a complete re-evaluation, a strategic review of World GAA and where the future of it is, because I think that World GAA is expanding at a rate that the GAA is moving too slow to understand and to be able to address. And I think, you know, we need to make 3 or 4 big decisions. So, for example, if you look at here, I was talking to John when he was showing me around, and John O'Flynn, one of the founding members of this place, and a wonderful man, was telling me that, you know, they had half the work done here before they nearly told Croke Park. And I think that if they had waited, Croke Park would have said, God, we're not too sure, wait till you have the money, wait till you have that. But in here, they just went ahead and got a good bit of it done and then went to Croke Park when they could see there was incredible momentum. And I think that there is great momentum in World GAA, and we have to try and match that momentum because there's so many other things that we have to look after at home that very often the World GAA can be at the back of our minds, and it shouldn't be, because that's the biggest frontier that we have to develop our game globally. So it's something that we definitely need to take a new look at, fresh eyes, and it's something that's a priority for me as well.
I think you mentioned potentially Olympic status and how that might look and how that might impact.
Well, if we could get Olympic status, it doesn't affect here in the US where GAA is well embedded. And in this city, there is tremendous, you know, you're very much embedded in the heart of the city here. But in places where people haven't a clue what the GAA is, like in Asia and places like that, I'm not saying that GAA should become an Olympic sport, but if you get Olympic status, it means then it becomes a lot easier for clubs and for the association abroad to hire pitches. And that's what it's all about, just getting pitches hired. So that's something that we are working very closely on. And Tom Ryan was over and met the Olympic Committee during the Olympics last year when they were in Paris to start addressing these issues. And
it's that cut through as well, Jarlath, the Steelers, the game that's taking place in Croke Park here, that, you know, the importance of US, the football here. How do you think that will engage with GAA and the US when you bring the Pittsburgh Steelers and have the NFL?
Yeah, well, one of the roles you have as GAA President is ambassadorial. So I decided that it was important the GAA would have a presence in Washington around St. Patrick's Day. So last year we went to Washington. We did a lot of lobbying in Washington, and then we went from Washington to Pittsburgh to meet the Steelers, because Croke Park is an incredible asset for us. It's a great financial dynamo. Brings in about 16 million every year for us, which is, considering it takes 20 million for us to run our coaching setup throughout the country with all our games promotion officers, that almost provides that budget for us. So it's a great asset, and Peter McKenna is a very visionary person in charge of it. He just wants to sweat the asset as much as possible. The Steelers coming to Ireland is going to bring in, worth about 270 million to the Irish economy, and having this iconic stadium that everybody wants to play in, whether you're a band or a team, I think it's our duty to try and do the most we can to make sure that we get the full use out of it. The Steelers, I've never seen such a demand for tickets as there has been for the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to play. And people are asking me, will you be able to get me a ticket? Will you get me a ticket? I don't even know how many tickets I'll get. I might end up getting 2 tickets, or I could get access to 100 tickets. It all depends on what way that works out. So take note, anybody who might be asking me for Steelers tickets. I don't even know if I'm going to get myself or not. And I think we're going to get a book at this, as to the price of those tickets as well. But it's a very exciting development for Croke Park, which is our stadium. And again, it just takes people with great vision to decide, at a time when there wasn't 5 cranes over Dublin, the GAA decided, you know what, we'll rebuild Croke Park from the start, knock it all down, keep the stadium open, and build it incrementally round itself. And even changed the shape of it, because it used to face this way, level with Jones's Road. They bought Clonliffe College up behind it, and they completely changed the shape of it. So that's, again, people of vision, risk takers. You know, it can very end up with what you have out here and what we have in Croke Park.
Great. And I think we have the NFL in Dublin. We also have the Junior All-Ireland quarter-final with the USGA and New York taking place in next month. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So looking forward to that. A quick pivot maybe up north, Jarlath, and the home of Ulster football. We saw the great Ulster final. Fortunate loss for Armagh, but a great Ulster final in Clonus brings us to think about Casement and the efforts around Casement. Could you give us an update, and do you think where that is? Where's the direction? Difficult question, but I know it's...
It all depends on how you view Casement Park, and as a priority for the GAA or as a priority for the Northern Ireland Executive, if you want to call it that. And very often when you offer context to the history of Casement Park, people get a completely different understanding of it. So I think it was 1969, Antrim were minor Ulster champions, and their senior team had been doing really well. And they had a run of 3 or 4 really good minor teams. 1970, internment came. I think about 11 of that team were interned, and they weren't seen. That ended their involvement in the GAA. And then Casement Park, as it stood then, was taken over by the British Army. It became a British Army garrison, the stand in Casement Park. And Casement Park never really recovered from that either, as did Antrim GAA. So it's such a symbolic project for us in the north to rebuild Casement Park, commensurate with what we would expect a modern stadium in 2025 should look like. And that's why we're putting so much effort into it, to try and get Casement Park built. It's going to take a lot of money, but I think it would be worth it. And I think we deserve a proper stadium for our Ulster finals. Gordon Lyons, the DUP minister, went to the Armagh Derry match last Saturday, and he couldn't believe the fact that the crowds weren't segregated, that it was all families, very respectable people, massive crowd, everybody supporting their team, no crowd trouble. And that's who we are. That's the GAA. That's who we are. And we should be very, very proud of that.
Thanks, Jarlath. I've got a conscious of time when games being played out the front. Has anyone any questions? Eamon?
Just about integration, ladies Gaelic football and Camogie. How are we doing on that? How likely is it to happen? What do you think the benefits would be?
Well, we want to make sure and get this right, Eamon. And I know I was talking to you beforehand, and you were saying that it was incredibly visionary that Camogie Association 120 years ago set up hurling for women. 50 years ago, the GAA had 100 years to set up Gaelic football for women and never did. 50 years ago, LGFA was founded, and I think they've done an incredible job. We have to be very careful that, you would ask yourself, if the GAA ourselves had decided 50 years ago to set up an LGFA ourselves, would ladies GAA be as strong as it is? I don't think it would be. I think that the LGFA has developed in an incredible way. Camogie is expanding very, very rapidly throughout Ireland, particularly in Dublin. So we have to be very careful that after integration that we don't see a drop-off in those sports, that because they'll become under the banner of the GAA. It'd be very important. There's a number of things that the gender quota in leadership in the GAA changes. So, for example, if you go to the GAA Central Council, there's only 2 women on it. One of them actually used to be Joan Henchy from New York. The other's Tracy from Cork, and she actually is part of a gender quota because one of our trustees had to be female, and only for that Tracy wouldn't have got elected. So it's all male apart from Tracy, and that's not representative of a modern organisation. So we need to do so much change in order to achieve that, and I think that it's definitely something that is worth doing, that has to be done right. So we've set up a fixtures work group that have come back, how fixtures are going to look, fixtures oversight group. Previous to that, I got Ger Ryan, who's former Munster chairman, to look at what would a county committee look like after integration. What would a county executive look like after integration? Would it be a separate committee for LGFA, one for Camogie, one for football, one for hurling, or would it be all one executive? And those of you who are involved in county executives would know that there's no 2 executives the same. So they made a report back. So there's so many things that have to be done in order to achieve integration, that the day we flick the switch, that everybody knows what they're doing, and we are a better organisation than we were the previous day, and we don't leave either of the 2 games behind us. So they are big challenges for us. It all comes down to the F's: facilities, finance, fixtures, and I think if we get all those right, we will have this wonderful organisation.
My question is regarding TV. My parents are in their 80s, and with RTE not covering games in Ireland, my parents can't get to see games unless one of the kids are at home to set up GAAGO for them. What are you going to do for the seniors in Ireland that kept this going for years in small clubs across the country? It's all over Ireland. It's not just for my parents in Galway. They want to watch every game. So what is the GAA going to do to make it easier for the seniors in Ireland to be able to watch a game on live TV?
Well, I was glad of GAA Plus this morning. I have to say it was great to get up and watch those games, and I'm sure a lot of people here would agree it has been a great bonanza for people living outside of Ireland. The funny thing is that last year we liaised with Age Ireland, with an organisation which is involved in issues for older people, and they said that it wasn't a big issue, logging in to GAAGO. It's not as easy just pressing your TV and it comes up, but RTE is a public service broadcaster that are only allowed to show so much Gaelic football, so much rugby, hurling, whatever. They have to also have time for news. They have to have time for drama, light entertainment, orchestra. They have, because they're a public service organisation, they have to find time for all of these. So the maximum amount of time that they can have for games, I think, is 31. TG Carher are different. Last year they showed 222 games free of charge on all of their platforms. So that adds up to about 250 games. And then GAAGO take whatever else they can. Because remember, if those games weren't taken by GAA Plus, as we call it now, they wouldn't be on at all. And we also need to understand, there was a lot of consternation, for example, that the Louth Down match wasn't on yesterday. It was another match on instead. That we can't show every game, and we shouldn't show every game. There is a threshold beyond which people stop going to games and they see the GAA as something where you sit at home and watch on the TV. That's not healthy either. GAA Plus took over from Sky. Sky was giving us X amount for the games. We knew that was unpopular, but we haven't yet been able to make that up with GAA Plus. So there is a deficit there of budget. And bearing in mind that 83% of all our funds goes back into the development of the game, we need 10 million every year for infrastructure, 20 million for our coaches. We're not keeping this money. This is money that we spread out, amongst, to develop the game in Ireland. So GAA Plus will become a very important part of our Gaelic Games future. But the model we try and get is this, and I understand where your parents are coming from. But remember, if you're in a hospital or in an old person's home, if you want to call it that, it's free there. You don't have to pay for it. if you're in hospital, if you're in a home or in a GAA club. We want to get an understanding that if you want to watch Gaelic games on a Saturday, you pay. But you don't have to pay if you want to watch them on a Sunday. There's one day of the week when you pay, Saturday. All the other days, under 20s, under 17s, Comórtas Pelin Gaeltachta, all of those other competitions, LGFA, they're all free on TG Cahir. Sigerson, Fitzgibbon. But on a Saturday, if you want to watch a couple of games, you pay. And it's only €69. That's 1 month Sky, €69. And you don't even get the full package for that. So I understand why some people would be consternation, but without GAA Plus, we wouldn't have those games at all being shown. And the final thing is this. Ideally, what we want to get to is where, you have all the tiles on your smart TV that you could press GAA Plus and it comes up. It's very expensive to do that, but it's something that we're looking at. And as GAA Plus develops, it's a road that we want to go down.
Thanks, Jarlath. Any other questions? I suppose while we're waiting for some more to come, just welcome Suzanne Burns and Ellen. Is Ellen in the room? Hey, Ellen. How you doing? Jarlath, you both very proud. You had at least two children, I think, playing this morning. One out on this side of the world and the other back in Croke Park. But it shows you the highlights that you've had in your Gaelic career, your GAA career. What stands out for you?
Well, there's numbers of things stand out. By the way, thank you to all the girls from nGael for keeping an eye on Alan. She's a bit of a handful. Very quiet, innocent girl. I know who's never taken a drink. Finds it hard to make friends. Same one. But no, thank you very much, because it's been a brilliant journey for her. I have to say, in San Francisco this year, I've been so envious of her. And her other daughter, Megan, went to guitar for a year, and she played for Oryx na Heron. Many things stand out. Obviously, the All-Ireland final last year was an incredible moment. It was very, very special, because for Charlie Oak to end up with the ball at the very, very end was... It's very rare you ever get moments like that. If you look at Roger Federer, maybe the best tennis player ever, I read his book there recently, and he was saying that he only wins 54% of all of the points that he hits, that he's involved in. 54%. And that has got him so many Grand Slams. And one of the things that he has to prepare for is defeat and disappointment. And like 3 weeks ago, we had that in the Ulster final, beaten by a point. They lost 2 Ulster finals on penalties, 2 All-Ireland quarterfinals on penalties. So it's not all fun and games and fairy tales. There's an awful lot of disappointments too. And like, we play for a club, Silverbridge, that has never won a championship. Next door to Crossmaglen Rangers that have won, maybe 50, 60 championships. And that definitely hurts in Silverbridge. Some people said Silverbridge would rather see Glasgow Rangers winning than Crossmaglen Rangers. I'm not one of them. I have great respect for Crossmaglen. I think they're an incredible club, and we're very proud to live beside them, and they are the standard that we all want to reach. And of course, they produced Jean Duffy, who was such a great help to this place, and is such a good friend of mine.
Any questions? I see Oisín lifting his hand, but I doubt it's. Jarlath, we talked about with the quarterfinals, the All Ireland Junior quarterfinals coming up with USGA and New York. Do you see that sort of harking back to that tradition of All Ireland championships being played here in the United States? Do you see an increase in that number coming across or going to?
I think that more and more you're starting to see the World GAA teams wanting to go and play in Croke Park. That's understandable. We saw New York yesterday in the hurling. I mean, it was an incredible victory for them. They were delighted. London then beat Derry in the Christie Ring. And none of these teams are playing just to make up the numbers. Now, I will say that New York coming in at semi-final stage in the Laurie Maher did cause consternation back home. The likes of Monaghan, Cavan, these teams were disappointed that a team just comes in and plays in the semi-final and final, and then that, they win when those teams are slogging it out. But it's either that or you end up having the fly teams over and back. And if you talk to our colleagues in rugby, so Munster were playing Sharks yesterday. And that's a major outlay for teams having to go over, across the other side of the world to play, and their supporters and everything else. So it's all a compromise. And that's what I say. That's why we probably need to do a review of where we are with regard to World GAA, how we view it, particularly at the high performance level. And that first round of the championship in New York is a very, very important part of what New York are about. They look forward to it. That's their main economic driver as well. And that agreement that they have with Connacht is starting to come to an end. Personally, I would like to see the All-Ireland champions go out and start their championship every year in New York. It'd be a fantastic weekend for everybody. But again, it's just demonstrating respect for the great work that's going on. I'm just looking out there now. While we're talking, there's a game of hurling on in an island called Treasure Island in the middle of San Francisco. Never take that for granted. These are our games. This is our culture. And I always say that, for young people being away, it's peace of mind, it's plenty of crack, and it gives you purpose. And that's what the GAA gives you. It gives us purpose, gives us a sense of belonging.
As you see, there's lots of pull from different sports in Ireland for kids. But my own experience going past the local GAA club, you see it packed with kids on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and through the week. Looking at the youth side, I'm thinking of the CYC that's coming up in Chicago. Are there part of that effort in building and maintaining the momentum that GAA has, focused on the youth? Are there initiatives that you're looking at from that perspective? I
was just talking to Eamon there, and we were talking about there is a gap, particularly in the US, whenever youngsters go to college, that if we could get in there and if we could really start influencing them, because they have this fixation with the NFL. And the college scene it's almost hard to understand how you can get 100,000 people going to watch university games. If you look at university at home, Sigerson, Fitzgibbon, it's not as big, because our pull is the parish and it's the county. We have that's our structure. Their structure is universities, and virtually everybody in America goes to university. So our challenge is if we could get into the colleges and pick up those lads who aren't making it onto the NFL team. Very athletic. I think a lot of those have already had a taste of Gaelic Games up until then. But you see how hard soccer, even rugby, have found it to get into the US. I think the GAA does very well with the Irish community. The next big stage is obviously, we saw a game of hurling this morning being played totally by Indigenous people, local people. That's really the future for the development. Two parts. It's a soft landing for the people who come into these countries, Irish people. But the next stage is making it attractive for the local people to play.
I think we're about to start stretching to get out ourselves here again, but I suppose before we go, Jarlath, is there any message for the community here, for this part of the world, that you'd like to leave with us in your second year as Uachtaráin?
Well, the first one is, I just want to say how proud I am of this man to my left. This man was a past pupil of ours in St Paul's in Bessbrook. Yeah. Came in as a wee boy from Camla.
Detention a few times.
And now here he is, practically. I went for dinner with him last night, and I'm not too sure of his role, but he told me he's practically the owner of the San Francisco. And we're very, very proud of him in our school. We have him up in one of the corridors as one of our famous past pupils, so I think it'd be important to say that. But just to yourselves, first, you're very lucky that you have the people who went before you who have the vision to make this place and to create a place to play. So important. And it reminds me of a poem that was written by a fellow called Martin O'Gearine, who left his home on the Aran Islands in Galway to live in Dublin. And he always harked back to the island. And, what was it that made him always want to go back to the island? And it was the people, and it was what they had left. And he wrote this verse, and he was referring to the fact that on the island, people left a legacy. And you don't leave a legacy when you're living in the town. And the legacy wasn't what you might think it was. So what he said was, and it's in Irish, but I'll translate it. He says, it's a poem called Stitcha, which is Irish for uprooted. So that's what all of you people have been, uprooted from where you are and planted here in San Francisco. He says, Hogan far sha chach, agus an far ud clí no fal, a war in a year, agus a kinny a kivna buin. Shinya clan agus clan a glinja, duina segin, coini a yanu, and aras o rini al yagu kis or in mrenanuas. So what he was saying was, this man built a house and another man built a ditch or a hedge, which lasted after him and kept his memory alive. We, their families and their families' families, are forced to live in a place belonging to somebody who would put a rent on the leak coming through the roof. Now, so looking at that poem, Stitcha, what is the legacy of the people who came before us? It's Treasure Island, it's the GAA, it's this beautiful pitch, and the vision and the risk-taking and the drive and the momentum of the people who took a pile of rubble and saw something more special, saw something that could become a place for Irish people to play and enjoy our native games. So for me, I have immense pride in each and every one of you. As I started, I'll finish. Ordinary people, ordinary Irish people, nothing special. That's who we are. And we are so proud of what you've achieved in this incredible city. So, Gura Mahagav.
Luke Durán Cumann, Luke Glasgow, Jarlath Burns, Gura Mahagav. Thank you so much.
Gura Mahagav.